Hey everyone, welcome to my first long-form video on this channel. This video was inspired by some of my favorite creators, particularly Jenny Nicholson's video on the Vampire Diaries, Quentin Reviews' video on iCarly and Victorious and Sam and Cat, and then Haley Whipjack's videos on Once Upon a Time. And so I kind of like those styles, and so I wanted to apply it to my favorite television shows. So I'm going to talk about the Arrowverse today, just a little glimpse, because I realized when I was first tackling this project that it's going to be a really long project. I mean, I count the Arrowverse, particularly when I do it, I count it as 7 shows. So Arrow, The Flash, Constantine, Supergirl, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, and Batwoman. Some people would count Superman and Lois or maybe a couple other things. Those I might count towards the end. I mean, we're not going to have to worry about that for a while in this retrospective series, but I might think about it towards the end. It's really just going to have to do with how popular this series is. Because just looking at just the 7 series I named earlier, which are the ones that I feel like are core Arrowverse series, we're already looking at 712 episodes of television. And so we'll just kind of see how this goes. This video is not going to be a crazy long one. This one's going to be more just of a little first taste into it. We're going to talk about just the first couple episodes of the Arrowverse. So that's just going to be the first couple episodes of Arrow. And so as I go through this, we're going to give a little bit of a summary of what happens in the episodes, and I'm going to introduce some characters and point out any major changes to you as we go. So I guess it all starts back in one October night in 2012. So that was a long time ago, and I did not watch it live. I started watching a little bit later. We'll get there when we go. I do have some personal stories that I'll share as we go along, because these shows mean so much to me and have helped me with so much throughout my life. So as we start here, hopefully y'all can see this on the camera. It's one of those things that I'm not going to be able to tell till I watch this back, but we're just going to go with it. So episode 1 is going to be our pilot. Most TV shows go. And so it tells the story of Oliver Queen, who I'm just going to go ahead and point us to our main character slide. Let's see. These are our main characters of season 1. I'm going to have this up behind me. There's a couple more as we go. I didn't completely just go with what they count as main cast members. I counted anybody that appears in at least a quarter of the episodes of a season as a main cast member. And so that's going to end up with a couple extra people on here. Walter down here is technically not a main cast member, but he appears enough for me to count him. You'll get it as we go along. But so we see Oliver Queen right here. This is a little bit of a later photo, but I had to work with the photos I had. Thanks to the Arrowverse Wiki for help with photos and all that sort of stuff as I went along. And also thanks to Pluto TV, because now that is the only place to stream Arrow in the United States. So that was helpful. If you want to sponsor me, you can, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. But I'm just throwing it out there. I'll be doing Big Brother coverage later, and you'll have the live feeds for that. So Pluto TV. But we see the story of Oliver Queen come home. He's been shipwrecked on this island, Lianyu, which is going to be this island off the coast of China. It's going to be, Lianyu is Mandarin for purgatory. This is kind of the opening lines of the show. And so we're going to spend, as we go through this show, learning about what he does once he gets back from the island. And we're also going to be flashing back to what happened to him while he was on the island. He comes back, and he comes back with this mission. His father has given him this mission. We don't quite immediately see how his father gave him this mission, but we'll see it as we go. He has this list with him, this list of a bunch of names of people that he believes has failed this city, or this city. It's Starling City is going to be the city where they live. I think it's generally Seattle area. We were to put it on a real map, but DC doesn't necessarily always do real cities. And so just kind of think of it as Seattle, Bay Area type stuff. And so he looks at his father's list, and the first person he comes on to when it comes to who he's going to target first is Adam Hunt. And Adam Hunt, at the same time as being targeted as Oliver on his new vigilante crusade, is also being targeted by an attorney in the area named Laurel Lance. This is Laurel right here. Laurel, we're going to start unpacking some of Laurel's history as we go, but she will be deeply connected to Oliver. We just haven't quite gotten there yet. We're going to learn big secrets about kind of that past as we go. And so Laurel, with the help of her, it's kind of a law firm, it's kind of not, it's called CNRI. It's a community outreach help program that does this lawyer stuff for on the cheaper than if they were to go through other means. So we're just going to look at it as a law firm mostly as the purposes of this go. But Oliver comes back, he reconciles with his family. So here's his mother Moira and his baby sister Thea. While Oliver's been gone, Thea has developed a bit of a drug and alcohol problem. She's only 17 when this show starts, and so she's got, her life has kind of fallen apart, but you kind of also feel sympathy for her because she was only like 12 years old when her brother and her father disappeared, and she assumed both of them were dead, and now she knows for a fact that her father is dead. We'll get a little bit back to the father in a little bit. And so we also meet Oliver's best friend, Tommy Merlin, up here. He's also another kind of rich playboy type. And so as Oliver's looking into things, Oliver's out with Tommy one day, and Tommy and Oliver get kidnapped. And from this point, has to like move up his agenda. And so he kills the kidnappers, and he decides that he's going to tell the cops, which this is the cop right here. This is Quentin Lance. He is father of Laurel Lance, and he has a hatred for Oliver, and we don't quite know the reason yet, but we will get there. And so, yeah, Oliver tells this story because Tommy was knocked out during this whole kidnapping situation, but he tells the cops that this man in a green hood came in and rescued him and Tommy from these people. And so now Oliver has started his crusade as the Hood. And so Moira is worried about all of this kidnapping and everything, and so she hires John Diggle right up here, who's going to be the bodyguard for Oliver, which Oliver is not liking having a bodyguard because that means that somebody's going to be watching him all the time, and if he's going to go out and be a vigilante, he can't necessarily always have like a bodyguard with him at all times. And so Oliver's going to eventually go along, and he's going to take down Adam Hunt, who is his guy on the list this time. And that's kind of how we start seeing the episode wrap up. We learn some stuff. We learn that Laurel and Tommy had been sleeping together while Oliver was away, and this is going to be like building tension in the background as the season goes along. And the final scene of the episode, which we're going to talk about the final scene in present day, and then we're going to go and talk about the flashbacks, because I just find it easier to talk about them kind of in segments. And so our final scene in present day, we learn that the person who hired the kidnappers to kidnap Oliver and Tommy was actually Moira. And so Moira had her own son kidnapped because she wanted to know what Oliver knew and what her late husband Robert told her. And so just a couple more things as we go. I'll do a little bit more character introductions once we finish talking about the flashbacks. The flashbacks show Oliver on his family's yacht, the Queen's Gambit, and he's there. It's him, his father, a crewmate, and then someone that Oliver brought along at the very last minute. And that person is Sarah Lance, Laurel's sister and Quentin's daughter, which at the time, Oliver was dating Laurel, but he was cheating on Laurel with Sarah. And so Sarah was brought along, and the affair was only discovered after the death of presumably Oliver and the death of Sarah, because as the boat starts collapsing, we're going to see Sarah get dragged away and presumably drown in the wreck of the Queen's Gambit. And so that's going to be why Quentin's so mad at Oliver, and why Laurel's going to have such a complicated relationship with Oliver, because Laurel was dating Oliver, and then he cheated on her, and now it's been 5 years removed, and that cheating got her sister killed, and so it's just this whole complicated situation. And so we see them get off as they go off, Oliver and his father and the crew member, whose name is Dave Hackett, which really doesn't matter that much. He's kind of a minor comic book character if anybody cares. It matters a little bit like seasons down the line. So I'll point it out when we get there again, but it doesn't matter. They end up on this little tiny life raft, and Oliver's dad has a gun, and so he shoots Hackett, and Hackett's body like falls into the ocean, and then he tells Oliver that Robert has failed this city, and that Oliver needs to make up for his wrongdoings, and then Robert shoots himself in the head. And then the episode's flashbacks end with Oliver's finally like landing on Lian in this little tiny life raft. And so that's kind of where we leave the flashbacks there. I'm going to do a couple more just character stuff as we go. So I've split all of our characters for the season into, here's my main cast. Like I said, it's going to be anybody that appears in at least a quarter of the episodes. And so there's a couple more main cast members that I have left to introduce you to as we go. And then there's also going to be our recurring cast of people that we're going to see more than once this season. And then the guest cast are going to be people that come back eventually, but only appear in this season one time. And so any extra things that I need to point out here, really, it's just, this is Walter Steele over here. Walter is going to be Moira's new husband. Walter was best friends with Moira's old husband, Robert Queen, prior to his death. And so Oliver's not exactly thrilled about this whole thing. But overall, Walter's actually a really nice guy. He's one of the nicer characters. He's kind of that character that they can lean on for goodness when Moira's going to represent kind of some more of that, maybe some evil bubbling up that we don't necessarily know completely yet and that Oliver doesn't necessarily know yet, but it's definitely there below the surface. And then kind of our last two characters that technically qualify enough to be main cast members, I just couldn't fit them on this slide and get the pictures to be big enough at the same time, are going to be Joanna de la Vega here. Joanna is Laurel's like legal partner, and she's also Laurel's best friend. And so a lot of the times in the story, she's going to show up really just give Laurel somebody to talk to, or if Laurel's going to do something, Joanna's typically going to go with her. And then there's Lucas Hilton, which Hilton is Quentin's police partner. And so he kind of serves the same purpose. He helps Quentin with whatever's going on, or if for some reason Quentin's not in an episode and they need a cop character, it's typically going to be Hilton. And so that kind of rounds out our main cast that we've met so far. And then quickly to our recurring characters, we meet two this episode. We meet Robert Queen, which RIP, these big red X's are just going to kind of signify when somebody's died. And for the purposes of this, if there's one character missing that some people might be thinking of, I'm taking it specifically as character, and I'm breaking that down into actor too. And so there's a character in this episode that is played by an actress, and that actress never comes back and gets completely recast with a different character later. I will introduce them as a new character when we get there. So I'm trying not to spoil anything, because I know sometimes people watch these videos for background noise and don't want a whole lot of spoilers. And so I'm only going to spoil stuff as we get there. And so we have Robert Queen. He's now dead. That's sad and everything. And then there's Adam Hunt, who is the corrupted businessman that I talked about that Oliver's been taking down throughout the course of this pilot. And so we'll see him come back in a little bit. And then the only character to add for our guest cast, this is Reza. She is the Queen's family's maid, and she's from Russia. And so we see Oliver speak to her in Russian. And so this kind of surprises some of the other people in his life. And it's kind of our first hint that maybe Oliver wasn't completely just on this island the whole time, or there had to at least be somebody else on this island that was able to teach him Russian throughout the course of the thing. We don't see Reza again for a very, very long time, but they do go out of their way to bring her back in a bigger role seasons down the line. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that we set up some sort of baseline there so you know who she is. And so that's really kind of our major things left for the pilot episode. The next couple episodes probably won't take quite as long for me to talk about, but you have to get a good basis underneath you before we can really start moving on.